Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a giant, and I do not mean that lightly.
No, definitely not.
We are looking at a book that has fundamentally changed the way we understand our own minds, economics, and honestly, just how we get through the day. We are diving into Thinking Fast and Slow by the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman.
This is, it's one of those rare books that actually lives up to the hype. It is not just a business book. It's not just a psychology book. It is basically a user manual for the machinery inside your head.
Right.
It explains why you do what you do,
Yeah.
even when you think you're doing something else entirely.
Yeah,
It is dense, it's challenging, but incredibly rewarding.
exactly. And the premise here is fascinating because Kahneman presents the mind not as a computer, but as a sort of drama, like a psychodrama occurring in your head right now with two main characters. And that is where we're going to spend a lot of our time today.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover.
But before we get into the weeds, I want to set the mission for this specific deep dive, because if you just try to skim this book or read the chapter titles, you will absolutely miss the nuance.
And the nuance is where the actual insight lives.
It is. So our goal today is to provide a simplified summary of the entire book. We are not skipping the hard stuff. We are going straight through all 5 parts. We have the 2 systems heuristics and biases overconfidence choices and the 2 selves.
We want to essentially upgrade your mental operating system by the time we're done here.
I love that phrase, an upgrade. And Kahneman actually states a very specific objective in the introduction. He says his goal is to enrich the vocabulary used at the office water cooler.
The water cooler objective.
Right, which sounds, it sounds so mundane, but when you dig into it, it is actually really strategic.
It is. He argues that it is much easier to identify and label the mistakes of others than to recognize our own. We're completely blind to our own biases.
Because we have an ego to protect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are inside the jar, so to speak. We can't read our own label. But if we have the right words, the right vocabulary, we can spot these errors in our colleagues. And hopefully, eventually, they can spot them in us.
Which is the idea of educated gossip. If we can talk intelligently about why someone made a bad decision, not just saying, oh, Bob is an idiot, but saying, oh, Bob is suffering from the sunk cost fallacy, or Bob is anchoring on last year's numbers, then we might actually make better decisions ourselves.
Precisely. It turns judgment into diagnosis. And once you have a diagnosis, you can start treating the problem.
Now, if you are enjoying this deep dive and you want to support more full narration summaries like this, please take a second to subscribe and share this content for the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. It really helps us keep these coming.
It helps us find the next giant book to tackle.
Absolutely. So shall we meet the characters?
Let's do it. Part 1, the characters of the story.
Kahneman introduces us to System 1 and System 2, and I think for a lot of people this is the most famous takeaway from the book. But let's really unpack what these are. Who is System 1?
System 1 is the fast thinker. It operates automatically quickly, with little or no effort.
And this is crucial, right?
Yes, with no sense of voluntary control,
Yeah.
you cannot turn it off. It is the machine that is running in the background constantly.
So this is the autopilot, but it's not just for breathing and walking. It does complex stuff too.
It does. Think about when you see a picture of a woman with a contorted screaming face. Kahneman uses this example early on. You don't have to try to figure out what she's feeling.
You instantly know she's angry.
You instantly predict she is about to yell. That entire assessment, past, present, and future prediction happens in a split second without you willing it to happen. That is System 1.
Kahneman actually calls it the hero of the book, doesn't he?
He does. Because it is the secret author of so many of our choices and judgments. It's detecting hostility in a voice. It is reading the word bread on a billboard as you drive past at 60 miles an hour. It answers 2 + 2. It orients you to a loud sound.
It is the machine building your reality moment to moment. It's incredibly efficient.
But because it is so fast, it cuts corners.
It has to. Speed relies on shortcuts.
Right.
Okay, so if System 1 is the fast automatic hero, who is System 2?
System 2 is the slow thinker. This is the one that allocates attention to effortful mental activities. It is the conscious you. When you think about yourself, your identity, your beliefs, your choices, you are thinking about System 2.
Give us an example where System 2 has to take the wheel.
Sure. If I ask you what is 17 times 24?
I immediately feel a sense of resistance. I do not know the answer off the top of my head. My brain sort of hurts just hearing it.
Exactly. System 1 has no intuition for that. It gives you absolutely nothing. It might tell you the answer isn't 5 and it isn't 10,000, but that is about it.
So I have to stop.
You have to stop. You have to focus, you have to retrieve the rules of multiplication, you have to hold numbers in your working memory. Your pupils will actually dilate.
Really?
Yes, your heart rate might even go up slightly. That is System 2 kicking into gear.
It's physically demanding.
It is. It consumes glucose. It is parking in a narrow space. It is looking for a specific person in a crowd of thousands. It's checking your behavior in a polite society when you are really angry. It requires energy and volition.
And the relationship between these two is where the drama lies. Because we think we are System 2, right? We think we are the captain of the ship.
That is the ultimate irony. We identify with System 2, the conscious reasoning self. But Kahneman argues that System 2 is actually a lazy controller.
A lazy controller.
Ideally, it should be the protagonist checking everything System 1 does,
Yeah.
but in reality, it is lazy. It often just endorses whatever System 1 suggests because it is biologically expensive to think hard.
Biologically expensive. That is a very polite way of saying thinking is hard work.
It is literal energy consumption. The law of least effort applies here. If there are several ways to achieve the same goal, people will eventually gravitate to the least demanding course of action.
So if System 1 presents a plausible story, System 2 usually just nods and says, sure looks good, without checking the math. It's like a rubber stamp.
It is. So if System 1 is the overeager intern throwing ideas at the boss, System 2 is the tired boss who just signs everything so he can go home.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the intern is right. That's the thing. System 1 is usually very good at its job. But when it makes mistakes, they're predictable.
Predictable, systematic mistakes, yes.
Which brings us to one of the most famous experiments regarding attention and effort, the invisible gorilla. I feel like even if you have heard this before, the implications are always shocking.
This is the experiment by Christopher Shabers and Daniel Simons. They made a short film of two teams passing basketballs. One team is in white shirts, one in black.
And the viewer is asked to count the number of passes made by the white team.
Right, which is a task that requires System 2. You have to filter out the black shirts. You have to keep a running count. It is demanding. You cannot drift off.
It completely absorbs your attention.
And halfway through the video, a woman wearing a full gorilla suit walks onto the court, thumps her chest, and walks off. She is visible for 9 whole seconds.
9 seconds. That is an eternity in video time.
And thousands of people have watched this. About half of them do not notice anything unusual. They are so focused on the counting task that they become completely blind to the gorilla.
And the scariest part isn't even that they missed it. It is their reaction when they are told.
They are astonished. They insist the gorilla was not there. They think the video was edited while they were looking away.
And this leads to a profound insight Kahneman shares. We can be blind to the obvious, and we are also blind to our blindness.
That second part, blind to our blindness, is the killer. We walk around confident that we see reality, but if our System 2 is occupied, maybe we are stressed, maybe we're calculating a budget, we literally miss the gorillas in the room.
And System 1 just fills in the gaps to make the world look normal. It creates a seamless experience, even if that experience is totally false. It doesn't tell you, hey, I'm ignoring part of the visual field. It just shows you a world without a gorilla.
Which connects heavily to the idea of cognitive ease versus cognitive strain. This is a major driver of which system is currently in charge.
Let's break that down. Cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease is when things are going well. You are in a good mood, the lighting is good, the font is easy to read, the audio is clear. In this state, System 1 is in control.
So you are less vigilant.
Less vigilant, more creative, more intuitive, but also much more prone to making logical errors. You let your guard down.
And cognitive strain.
That is the opposite. When you are straining, maybe you are looking at a font that is pale and blurry, or you are in a bad mood, or the instructions are confusing. System 2 wakes up.
It senses a problem.
Right. It becomes more critical. You are less likely to make mistakes, but you're also less creative and honestly less happy.
There is an experiment about fonts that blew my mind. It suggests that legibility actually equals credibility.
It is fascinating. They presented a business plan or a statement to people. When the text was printed in a hard-to-read font, the reader System 2 engaged. They read it critically. They found the flaws.
But when it was in a clear, easy font,
they were far more likely to accept the plan casually.
So if you want someone to spot errors, use a bad font. If you want them to just agree with you, use a clear font.
In a nutshell, yes. System 1 links ease of processing with truth. If it feels easy to understand, it feels true. This is why catchy slogans work. If it rhymes, it primes. It feels familiar, and familiarity breeds trust for System 1.
That is frankly terrifying for the era of fake news.
It is. A bold, simple lie is easier to process than a complex, nuanced truth. So System 1 gravitates toward the lie because it offers cognitive ease.
This brings us to the associative machine. This is how System 1 builds our reality right, by linking things together.
Yes, System 1 is an engine for association. It links ideas together, cause and effect things that occur together. It creates a massive web of meaning. And this leads to priming, which is where things get a little spooky.
The Florida effect. We have to talk about the Florida effect.
This is a classic example of priming. Researchers asked young college students to assemble 4-word sentences from a set of 5 words.
Okay, simple enough.
For one group, the scrambled sentences contain words associated with the elderly. Words like Florida, forgetful, bald, gray, or wrinkle.
But the word old was never actually used explicitly, right?
Correct. Just the associations.
Yeah.
But here is the kicker. After the task, the young students were sent to walk down a hall to another room. The researchers secretly measured their walking speed.
And
The students who had built sentences with elderly words walked significantly slower down the hallway than the other group.
they physically acted out the concept of old without even realizing it.
They were primed. The idea of old age was activated in System 1, and it literally flowed into their physical behavior. It shows that we are not the conscious masters of our actions that we think we are. Our environment is constantly pushing buttons in System 1.
And it works the other way, too. If you force yourself to smile, you actually feel happier.
Yes, the facial feedback hypothesis. If you hold a pencil in your teeth, it forces your face into a smile, and cartoons will actually seem funnier to you. System 1 links the physical state back to the emotional state. It is a two-way street.
That leads perfectly into part 2, the mechanics of error. If System 1 is constantly making these associations and jumping to conclusions, surely that leads to mistakes.
It leads to systematic errors, which we call biases. And Kahneman introduces a concept here that I think is the most important acronym in the entire book, WYSIATI.
WYSIATI. What you see is all there is.
This is the defining feature of System 1. It is radically insensitive to the quality and quantity of information. It constructs the best possible story out of the information currently available.
It does not ask, what am I missing?
Never. It completely ignores information it does not have. It treats the available info as if it were the total sum of the universe.
So if I meet a consultant and they give a great presentation, they are confident, good slides, charming, System 1 says this person is competent, the business is good.
Exactly. You ignore the fact that you haven't seen their financials, you haven't talked to their former clients, you haven't seen their track record. System 1 just says the presentation was good, therefore the consultant is good.
It suppresses doubt to create a coherent story.
As Kahneman says, they didn't want more information that might spoil their story.
Because consistency feels good. Doubt feels like cognitive strain.
Correct. System 2 can handle doubt, but System 1 cannot. It wants a clear cause and effect. And this WYSIATI principle explains why we are so confident in our judgments even when we know very little.
And this leads to substitution. This is another mechanism of error. When System 1 is faced with a difficult question, it often swaps it out for an easier one without you even noticing.
It is a mental bait and switch.
The Ford stock example is the best illustration of this. Let's walk through that.
Right. Imagine an executive deciding whether to invest millions of dollars in Ford Motor Company stock. The actual question is deeply complex. Is the Ford stock currently underpriced relative to its future value?
That requires massive financial analysis, market forecasting, understanding the global supply chain. That is heavy System 2 stuff.
It's incredibly hard. So System 1 performs a substitution. It asks some easier question. Do I like Ford cars?
I went to the car shed. The cars were shiny. I liked them.
So the answer to do I like the cars is yes. And that yes gets mapped directly onto the difficult question. The executive invests millions, not because he analyzed the stock price, but because he likes the cars.
He thinks he has answered the difficult question, but he hasn't. He has answered the heuristic question.
Yes, and this is closely related to the affect heuristic.
Right, where our emotions do the heavy lifting.
The affect heuristic is where people let their likes and dislikes determine their beliefs about the world. If you dislike a certain technology, say nuclear power or maybe a specific political policy, you probably believe its risks are incredibly high and its benefits are negligible.
Even if the data shows a mixed bag. Even if it's safe but has some drawbacks.
System 2 becomes an apologist for System 1. Instead of looking at the data critically, System 2 looks for arguments that support what System 1 already feels. It is an endorser, not a critic.
That explains so much of our modern political discourse. If I like the candidate, everything they do is smart and justified. If I hate them, everything they do is dangerous and corrupt.
It creates a simplified world where good things have only good aspects and bad things have only bad aspects. Reality is messy, but System 1 hates mess. It wants heroes and villains.
Another area where System 1 completely fails us is statistics. Kahneman talks about the law of small numbers.
System 1 is a pattern seeker. It hates randomness. It constantly seeks causal explanations for random events.
We trust small samples way too much.
We really do. If a researcher sees a pattern in a study of, say, 20 people, they assume it is true for the whole population. But small samples are incredibly volatile. We see patterns where none exist. We think a basketball player is hot because he hit 3 shots in a row. But statistically, that is often just random variation.
This leads to anchoring, too. We've mentioned this in other deep dives, but it is crucial here.
Anchoring is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered. If I ask you, is the tallest redwood tree more or less than 1,200 feet tall? And then I ask you to guess the actual height.
My guess will be significantly higher than if you had asked, is it more or less than 180 feet?
It's exactly. The number 1,200 anchors you. Your System 1 grabs onto it, and System 2 struggles to pull away from it. This happens in salary negotiations all the time. The first number mentioned sets the gravity for the whole discussion.
But I want to spend a moment on regression to the mean. This feels like one of those concepts that once you understand it, you see it everywhere. And the story Kahneman tells about the flight instructor is just perfect.
It is the definitive example of this bias. So Kahneman is giving a lecture to flight instructors in the Israeli Air Force. He is explaining that psychologically rewards for improved performance work better than punishment for mistakes.
Which is standard psychological theory. Positive reinforcement works better.
Right. But one of the seasoned instructors stands up and says, that is nonsense. I have noticed that when a pilot has a terrible landing and I scream at him through the headset the next time he lands, he does better.
Okay.
But when a pilot has a perfect landing and I praise him the next time he does worse. So clearly screaming works and praise makes him soft.
It sounds like a completely valid observation. He is observing cause and effect right in front of him.
It sounds valid, but it is a massive statistical error. It is regression to the mean.
Explain how that works in this context.
In any skill involving luck and variance, like landing a jet, which is influenced by wind gusts, nerves fatigue, an extreme performance is usually followed by a more average one.
So if a pilot has an incredibly bad landing statistically, his next landing will almost certainly be closer to average regardless of whether he gets screamed at or not. He was just having a bad day.
Exactly. And if he has a perfect landing and outlier in the good direction, his next one will likely be worse just because perfect landings are incredibly rare.
So the instructor attached a causal narrative. My screaming fixed him to what was essentially a mathematical inevitability.
The pilot improved despite the screaming, not because of it.
That is tragic in a way. We learn the exact wrong lessons from experience. We think being mean works because of regression to the mean.
It creates a narrative fallacy, which brings us nicely to part 3, overconfidence.
Yes. Part 3. The illusion of understanding. This is where Kahneman brings in the influence of Nassim Taleb.
Right. We have an insatiable need to make sense of the world. So we create narrative fallacies. We look at the past and we construct flawed, simple stories to explain what happened. We delete the messiness.
We make it look like it was all inevitable.
We assign way too much role to talent, stupidity, or intention, and not nearly enough to luck. Take the rise of a company like Google. We look back and say, oh, the founders were geniuses. The strategy was perfect.
We ignore the 100 lucky breaks they caught and the 100 other companies that were just as smart but failed due to bad timing.
This feeds directly into hindsight bias, the I knew it all along effect.
Hindsight bias is pernicious. Once an event happens, it becomes impossible to recall how uncertain we were before it happened. Our mind literally overwrites the past.
If a risky decision turns out, well, people say I knew it was a sure thing. If it turns out badly, they say I knew it was a mistake.
This effectively punishes decision makers for bad outcomes, even if their process was completely sound.
Yes. It leads to result-oriented thinking. If a CEO takes a good calculated gamble and loses, they're fired. If they take a reckless gamble and get lucky, they are hailed as a visionary genius. We judge the outcome, not the decision quality.
And this leads to the illusion of validity. We overestimate how much we understand the world.
We think the world makes sense. It does not. It is largely chaotic. But acknowledging the full extent of our ignorance is terrifying. So System 1 builds a comforting story of certainty.
But wait, surely there are times we can trust intuition. What about experts? What about a chess master who sees a move instantly? Is that just System 1 being overconfident?
That is where the nuance lies. Kahneman discusses when we can actually trust expert intuition. He distinguishes between true expertise and the illusion of it.
What is the difference?
Two conditions must be met for intuition to be valid. First, the environment must be sufficiently regular to be predictable. Chess is a highly regular environment. The rules do not change. A pawn is always a pawn.
And the second condition?
There must be an opportunity to learn these regularities through prolonged practice and rapid feedback.
So a chess master or a firefighter?
Yes. A firefighter who senses a floor is about to collapse that is valid intuition. He has seen thousands of fires. The cues are consistent. He gets immediate terrifying feedback. The floor collapses or it doesn't.
But a stock picker?
No. The stock market is not a regular environment. It is what they call a wicked and chaotic environment. It is influenced by millions of variables. So a stock picker who has a gut feeling is suffering from an illusion. They might be confident, but their confidence is not a measure of accuracy.
That is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of industries.
It really is. Kahneman basically says that in low validity environments, simple algorithms and formulas almost always beat expert judgment. A formula is consistent. An expert is swayed by whether they are hungry or what they saw in the news that morning.
Let's move to part 4, choices. This is where we get into the heavy-hitting economics, the work that actually won Kahneman the Nobel Prize.
This is the epic battle between econs and humans.
Define an econ for us.
An econ is the mythical creature that lives in economic textbooks. They are perfectly rational. They view the world consistently. Their preferences do not change based on how you word a sentence. They care about the final state of wealth, not how they got there. If you offer them a bet, they calculate the expected value like a computer.
And humans?
Humans are what you and I are. We have System 1. We are biased. And centrally, we are not rational about risk. This leads to prospect theory.
Okay, let's break down prospect theory. What is the core insight here?
The core insight is loss aversion. For a human, the psychological impact of a loss is significantly stronger than the joy of an equivalent gain.
So losing $100 hurts more than finding $100 feels good.
Much more. The ratio is usually measured at about 2 to 1. You need the potential of winning $200 to balance out the psychological risk of losing $100. Evolutionarily, this makes perfect sense. Avoiding threats was more important than getting a little extra food.
And this totally changes how we make decisions.
Completely. We are risk-averse when it comes to games. If I give you a choice between a sure $900 or a 90% chance to win $1,000, most people take the sure thing. They lock in the game.
They fear the disappointment of gambling and getting nothing.
But when it comes to losses...
When facing losses, we suddenly become risk-seeking.
Yes. If I give you a choice between a sure loss of $900 or a 90% chance to lose $1,000 with a 10% chance to lose nothing, most people take the gamble. They roll the dice to avoid the sure loss.
Even though statistically the gamble is a worse bet, the expected loss is higher.
Yes. We will accept a high probability of a worse disaster just to buy a tiny sliver of hope of avoiding the loss entirely. This is why people hold on to losing stocks way too long. They do not want to realize the loss.
This leads to a fascinating grid. Kahneman describes the fourfold pattern. This is where the econ and the human really diverge. It explains everything from lottery tickets to lawsuits. Can we walk through that grid?
Absolutely. Imagine a grid with 4 corners. Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right.
Got it. Let's start top left.
Top left is high probability of gain. Imagine you have a 95% chance to win $10,000.
Okay, I feel great about that. I am almost rich.
But you are also nervous. You are afraid of that 5% chance of getting nothing. So if I offer you a settlement of $9,000, a sure thing, you take it, you're risk averse.
Even though the expected value of the gamble is higher at $9,500, I will take the lower sure amount to avoid disappointment.
Exactly. This is why people settle strong legal cases for less than they are statistically worth.
Okay. Now, bottom left, low probability of gain.
A 5% chance to win $10,000.
This is a lottery ticket.
It is. Here we become risk-seeking. We overweight the small probability. We are buying the dream. We pay way more for the ticket than it is mathematically worth because of the possibility effect. System 1 ignores the math and focuses entirely on the vivid image of winning.
Okay, now let's go to the dark side of the grid. Top right, high probability of loss.
You have a 95% chance of losing $10,000.
Ouch, that is bad.
It is almost certain ruin. but there is a 5% chance you might lose nothing. Here, humans become incredibly risk-seeking. They will reject a sure loss of $9,000 to gamble on that 5% miracle.
This is the sunk cost nightmare. This is the gambler at the casino who is down big and tries to win it all back on one crazy bet.
It is, and it is where businesses die. They refuse to cut their losses. They double down, hoping for a miracle, and often lose absolutely everything instead of taking a manageable hit early on.
And the final corner, bottom right, low probability of loss.
A 5% chance to lose $10,000.
This is like my house burning down.
Exactly. It is very unlikely. But here we are risk-averse again. We pay a premium-like insurance that is far higher than the expected cost of the loss just to eliminate the worry.
Yeah.
We buy peace of mind.
So we gamble on long shots for gain, and we gamble to avoid sure losses, but we pay extra to avoid small risks of loss.
It is not consistent mathematically, but it is entirely consistent psychologically.
This also connects to the endowment effect, doesn't it?
The endowment effect is simple but profound. We overvalue things simply because we own them. Once I have a coffee mug in my hand, my selling price for it is much higher than what I would be willing to pay to buy it from someone else. Giving it up feels like a loss.
And losses hurt.
Exactly. The pain of giving up the mug is greater than the pleasure of getting the money.
Another huge part of this choices section is framing. The idea that how you present a choice changes the decision.
This completely destroys the idea of the rational econ. If I offer you cold cuts that are 90% fat-free, you think that sounds healthy? I'll take it.
But if you offer me the exact same meat and label it 10% fat, I'm much less likely to buy it.
It is the exact same meat.
Rationally, yes. But System 1 reacts to the words. Fat-free triggers good associations. Fat triggers bad ones. The frame determines the reality. We also have a weird relationship with rare events, right? Like terrorism or the lottery.
We massively overrate the probability of rare events. Why? Because System 1 responds to the vividness of the story, not the probability number. A terrorist attack is vivid. A plane crash is vivid. So we worry about them excessively while largely ignoring common threats like heart disease or car accidents, which kill far more people but just aren't as vivid.
We are driven by the story, not the stats.
Always the story. System 1 loves a good story.
We are heading into the final stretch here, Part 5, the two selves. This is arguably the most philosophical part of the entire book.
It is the part that makes you fundamentally rethink what happiness actually means. Kahneman distinguishes between the experiencing self and the remembering self.
Who is the experiencing self?
The experiencing self is the one doing the living. It answers the question, does it hurt right now? It lives in a stream of moments about 3 seconds long each. Once the moment is gone, it is gone forever.
And the remembering self?
The remembering self is the storyteller. It keeps score. It answers the question, how was it? It looks back at the past and constructs a narrative out of those moments.
And you would think they would agree. If I had a good vacation, I remember a good vacation.
You would think.
Yeah.
But they follow totally different rules. The remembering self is subject to duration neglect and the peak end rule.
Explain duration neglect.
The remembering self does not care how long an experience lasted. If you were on a great vacation for 1 week or 2 weeks, your memory of it is largely the same, assuming the highlights were the same. The duration adds almost no value to the memory. The experiencing self lived through twice as much pleasure in the 2-week vacation, but the remembering self doesn't count the extra time.
That is so counterintuitive.
It is. What matters instead is the peak end rule. The memory is defined by the average of the most intense moment, the peak, and how the experience finished the end.
So if I have a medical procedure.
This is the famous example Kahneman uses involving colonoscopies.
Oh, boy.
2 patients. Patient A has a procedure that lasts 10 minutes. It is painful, and it ends abruptly at a very high pain level. Patient B has a procedure that lasts 20 minutes, twice as long. The first 10 minutes are just as painful as patient A, but the last 10 minutes are just mild discomfort, tapering off gently.
So patient B suffered more total pain. They were in pain for twice as long.
Much more experiencing pain. But because it ended gently, patient B remembers the experience as much less painful than patient A. The remembering self completely ignored the duration and focused on the better ending. Patient B would actually be more willing to repeat the procedure than patient A.
This has huge implications for how we plan our lives, doesn't it?
It does. We make decisions based on the memories we expect to create, not the actual experience we will have. We book the expensive, exhausting vacation for the memories, not for the moment-to-moment experience. We might endure a miserable freezing hike just for the photo at the summit.
And this leads to the focusing illusion.
Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. That is a classic Kahneman quote. When you think about buying a new luxury car, you imagine the peak moments, driving it off the lot, the smell of the leather. You overestimate how much it will change your daily happiness.
But in reality,
After a month, the car is just a car. You are thinking about traffic or your work or what's for dinner, not leather seats. But when you are making the decision, you focus entirely on the car and ignore everything else.
we miswant. We want things that won't actually make the experiencing self happy.
Precisely. We buy things for the remembering self, but the experiencing self has to live with them every day.
So we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have met System 1 and System 2. We've seen how we jump to conclusions with WYSIATI. We've looked at our overconfidence, our loss aversion, and the conflict between our two selves.
It is a profound journey through the flaws of the mind.
So what is the ultimate goal here? Kahneman is clear that we cannot just turn off System 1. We cannot constantly walk around calculating probabilities for every small decision.
No, that would be paralyzing. System 1 is generally good. It keeps us alive. It catches the ball when it's thrown at us. The goal is not to replace it, but to recognize situations where mistakes are highly likely. It is about slowing down and engaging System 2 when the stakes are high.
And recognizing it in others.
Yes. That water cooler idea we talked about at the beginning, we need an environment, a culture where it is safe to say, hey, I think you are falling for the sunk cost fallacy here, or are we sure this isn't just the halo effect?
Adversarial collaboration.
Exactly. We need others to be our external system too. We are simply too blind to see our own gorillas. We need someone else in the room to point them out.
I love that. We need others to be our external system too. That is a perfect summary.
One final provocative thought to leave you, the listener, with. Think about the concept of educated gossip. We usually think of gossip as a bad thing. But if we can gossip about how people think, rather than just what they did, we elevate the collective intelligence of our entire group. We stop blaming people for being stupid and start understanding the machinery that tripped them up.
That is a really powerful shift. Understanding the machine, not just judging the operator.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a true deep dive. If you want to keep upgrading your mental operating system, please remember to subscribe and share this with your friends, your colleagues, maybe even your boss, framed politely, of course.
Maybe in a nice, clear font.
Yes, definitely in a clear font. This is for the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. We really appreciate you listening.
Until next time, think slow.
Take care.